The world has ended. Everything that remains of humanity's culture is stored here in this podcast, a time capsule assembled by three white dudes from what was once called the Midwest. This is not everything. This is not most things. But this is it.
And welcome to another episode of This Is It, a pop culture podcast for the end of the world. I'm Sam Webb.
And I'm Gabe Webb.
And I'm Daniel Osborne.
And we here at This Is It are just trying to fill your post-apocalyptic lives with a little bit of sunshine. Though not literal sunshine, because that would actually maybe be helpful. More just like, I feel like sunshine. Or other such random 90s tunes.
But also not too much sunshine, because we know the atmosphere has burned away.
Yeah.
And it might literally melt you.
Yes.
I was going to say, I'm going for kind of like a nightlight. Which is just kind of like a little just dim bulb in the darkness.
Yep.
I'm going for the light at the end of this Snowpiercer tunnel.
Yep. This maybe it's just a light that's always going to be in the distance that you can never truly reach and is just supposed to be giving you a little bit of hope.
Yeah, as the Smiths say, there's a light that never goes out. That's
and
a very positive song.
You'll learn about the Smiths if we ever decide to teach you about them with our pop culture podcast. We won't. So guys, I wanted to introduce the people of the future to one topic that is near and dear to my heart. No, it's not. Twist endings.
No. I didn't see it coming.
But no, really, I want to talk about twist endings. I think
Okay.
and by that I mean movies, TV shows, any sort of story that sets you up for what can best be referred to as a surprise ending or reveal that changes either the way the story that how you expected it to end, or even changes the whole story from beginning to end because it changes your perspective on it. That's
Right, because I think just an end being surprising isn't necessarily a twist, because hopefully the idea in narrative media is that you don't see everything coming.
Yes.
So I think your point about it kind of being a rewriting of your perspective and understanding is a really important jumping off point for what it actually means to be a twist ending.
Yeah, and so with that, Dan, it sounds like you've given this some thought. When I say twist endings, what comes to mind?
I probably chose some of the lowest hanging fruit, but if you want to think of something where an entire world or galaxy is built up around a series of films with the understanding of this is who this person is and this is who that person is. But wait, no, it's not. It goes straight to the second of the original Star Wars trilogy, Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
Because your protagonist, your whiny protagonist, Luke Skywalker, is set upon his journey thinking that his father, Anakin Skywalker, was killed by the evil Dark Lord of the Sith, Darth Vader. What you find out in we have a clear spoiler policy on the show, but I don't even have to worry about a spoiler because this is one of the most quoted pop culture lines ever. What you find out at the end of Empire Strikes Back is that, in fact, Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. Darth Vader did not kill Luke's father. Darth Vader is his father. And it just... It turns the whole thing on its head. Luke has this immediate, no! reaction because his entire worldview is shifted. This person that he thought was his enemy is actually his dad, and like, but my dad was a great war hero. It immediately throws this conflict and makes from the go Darth Vader a more complex character.
Yeah.
He was somebody before he fell. He was Luke's dad.
And it complicates Luke's motivations, which up to this point have been largely about following in the footsteps of his father in joining the rebellion and
Right.
being a Jedi, and then also about seeking revenge for his father because by trying to hunt down and kill Darth Vader. So this, like, it's kind of like he gets to the end of his story, but nowhere near the way he was planning on getting there, because
To follow in the footsteps of his father would be to become evil.
yes, and to revenge his father would be to kill his father.
Yeah.
In some sense. I think that's like you said. I don't think that we need to spoiler alert that particular one because, but just we typically don't worry about spoiling things. We assume that if you're listening that you know that we're going to wrap stuff up, but just special one because we are going to be talking about stuff that if you know the twist, it does impact. Like, I think everybody knows now when they watch Star Wars that Darth Vader is Luke's father, so it doesn't have the same oomph.
Yeah.
So if there's anything that you haven't seen that you plan on seeing
that you've heard might have a twist ending.
yeah, like maybe skip this one or skip the parts that you hear us talking about, whatever. But yeah, just wanted to throw that in there.
I think it would be interesting because with Star Wars is unique, as you both pointed out, in that the twist of that one has long been so spoiled
Yes.
that I think I'd be interested to know if it actually denigrates if it actually brings the quality of the film down, that we as a culture have like removed all surprise from that twist.
Yeah, I think it takes away some. I think it's all. I think it's hard. I think it's hard to say that like we can blame the culture for It was a massively popular movie,
Right.
that's like saying like the ending of Jaws was ruined. Like no, like just everybody saw Jaws.
Yeah.
Like just people knew. But I do think something has been lost. I think something's been lost for generations going down. I think no one has a shot at watching Star Wars without knowing Luke, I am your father, which
Right.
isn't even actually the real quote. It's no, I am your father. And I think the actual real emotional moment might be ruined in just how cheaply it's bandied about. Like it's a punchline now,
Yeah.
Right.
more than it is like a really serious moment.
Yeah. I mean, there's that part in Toy Story 2 where the evil Emperor Zurg toy says it to Buzz Lightyear.
Right.
It does kind of call into question, though. I mean, if you watched Star Wars and were surprised by that when you watched it, then would it be that you are watching a better movie, or is it that the movie isn't as good because it relies on this like switch, like the pull the rug out from under you? Like, is it just that the surprise element of a twist ending makes it easier for the writer because they no longer have to make something like compelling because there's this like this mechanic of just like what you thought was true is not true.
Yeah, but I would say that goes back to the like original premise we set out in that a twist ending should be something that recasts the rest of the film. And I think to really successfully do that,
Yeah, it takes work.
right, it takes a lot of work to sort of build a film up to that moment successfully.
Yes. Yeah, I do think
To build like where there are two plausible realities moving in parallel.
yeah,
Right.
I guess that is a good point. Like that if I wrote a bad script and I just decided to make somebody secretly someone else's father, you can't steal that kind of thing. Like you have to earn it. Like that you can't just plaster that. Like someone had to have the idea at some point or another before writing the line "No, I am your father." That Darth Vader, like there's so much talk about Luke's father, and in turn so much talk about Anakin Skywalker with Darth Vader, and it just recasts a lot of things. So yeah, I guess that is a good That's
I
a
think
good
I think
point.
if it was used cheaply, it would come across as cheap and wouldn't be effective.
Yeah, and I think that there are
Oh,
in
absolutely.
many instances of that, but I think that we'll try and focus on the times when it's
Yeah.
at least in some way like a part of the narrative.
I mean, it goes back to the screenplay I wrote. Liberty comes at a price in space, where it's revealed in the final act of the film that the ship's physician, Dr. Arnold, is in fact a robot. Which I can safely admit now is a lazy twist because it does absolutely nothing to recast the film or the character.
Yeah.
Because Dr. Arnold was a pretty expendable character.
I can't believe we're gonna put Liberty Comes at a Price in Space in the time capsule.
I mean, to the people of the future, it is just as valid as the Star Wars films.
I mean, it's a great title.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong.
I think in film, it's a little bit harder to get away with because you're dealing with such a controlled amount of narrative. I think in TV, the twist ending has become a crutch for like certain, especially like sci-fi, like I don't know if either of you have watched old or new Battlestar Galactica.
I've actually only ever seen the series premiere.
Okay. So I've only seen sporadic episodes of that show. I can't remember character names. But there are, so the whole premise is that there's this sentient robot like AI race that is trying to decimate the human beings that are left in this like post-Earth world. And they're called Cylons, and mostly they're just these big, like the humans call them toasters, like they're these big ugly like make machine sounds machines. But over the course of the story, it's revealed that Cylons have also figured out a way to make human looking Cylons, and they're like they only make like 6 different types of them or whatever. But throughout the course of the show, whenever they're kind of wanting for a good hook, they just go, oh no, that person has been a Cylon the whole time. And it becomes a thing where at a certain point they just kind of run out of ideas, and that's just what they always go to.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe doesn't deserve to be in the time capsule, but definitely is like a prime example of like a show that just was like the first time they came up with an idea, they were like, oh, this is going to be killer. And then they just kept going to that well.
Yeah. And I'd say in television, there's probably 2 functional realities of the bad twist. Mm-hmm. One is, like you said, it sort of has to serve as this like defibrillator to the series.
Yes.
Like, oh, we just like ran out of steam on these plot lines. What can we do? Robot man, this
Yeah.
whole time. Oh no, that's what I did.
Yeah.
Oh god. Oh no. And then, but the other one I think is like maybe a similar but slightly nuanced difference in that like an artificial cliffhanger. What comes to mind for me was the season finale of Dallas, where it was revealed that the entire previous season was just a dream.
Oh yeah.
Just absolutely lazy.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, like just to get out of a corner where they've killed off a character or had to make people who were in love fall out of love or something.
right, and that's not necessarily like the series has run out of steam. It's more just like we wrote one direction and then we realized we really needed to go this other direction. Also, We Wrote One Direction is going to be the title of
Simon Cowell's
Cowell's autobiography.
Yeah.
After he becomes, multiple personalities, maybe.
Yeah. When he ascends to it's when he becomes a king of his own small nation.
Or when he
Starts using the royal we.
When he becomes a hive consciousness.
Yeah.
As he was trying to accomplish with Il Divo.
We are all Simon Cowell. We all wrote One Direction.
They call me Cal, for I am many.
Maybe this is a concept you can relate to, people of the apocalyptic future.
Yes. So Gabe, do you have a example of a good? We got a little bit of a tangent on maybe bad or cheap twist endings, but what's an example you can come up with of a good twist ending?
Yeah, I don't know if it's like a textbook great example, but it's definitely I think on the better side of things is Planet of the Apes.
Mm-hmm. You're talking about the original
the original Charlton Heston
Yeah.
Planet of the Apes, where it is revealed that this astronaut who thinks as though he has traveled through space and knows he's traveled through several centuries of time, as he has moved away from Earth at light speed, and landed on a planet of intelligent apes, only finds out at the end that as he sees the sort of destroyed Statue of Liberty poking out from a sand dune, that he was on Earth the whole time.
Yeah. And at least in that case, it's a reveal that we get to see the character wrestle with, like in the form of a drop to the knees, scream.
Not unlike Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's a common thread so far.
Yeah.
do all twist endings have to end with someone yelling no?
No, one of my examples doesn't. Or should I say no?
Twist.
No.
Dan, what you said you have a counter example?
Yeah,
to the
so
screaming no.
I think a lot of what one of the more effective ones that I can think of is actually The Sixth Sense.
Oh yeah,
And it's really painful to invoke M. Night Shyamalan now, because at this point, his career is just a horror show. But in this debut, The Sixth Sense, a lot of what we've talked about so far, the reality has been explicitly laid out. Luke, your father Anakin was killed by Darth Vader. I am Charlton Heston. I have traveled all this way. The Sixth Sense, Bruce Willis does not come out and say, I am alive.
yeah. That's true. He did. That would have been a little bit of a red herring. I guess.
But everything is like he's living. He's having experiences, and he's talking to this little boy, and he's interacting with his wife, and it's all just he's alive.
Yeah.
He's being a person. He's doing things, and I think part of why it's so effective when you find out that the little kid can see dead people, and that actually Bruce Willis has been dead the whole time, is that like it never occurred to you to think that he wasn't. Like it was never put to you as a fact that could be contradicted. It's just there's our protagonist.
Yeah.
There he goes. I genuinely tend to watch movies thinking that my lead characters are alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Unless it's Casper. So I think that's something. I don't think he falls to his knees and yells no when he finds out, but it's been a while.
I think The Sixth Sense is not unlike Fight Club in some respects of that twist. In that, at least initially, when you watch the film, there's no outright indication that Brad Pitt's character is not a real human being.
Right.
It's only when you sort of watch it again with that mindset that you sort of start to see the cracks,
Yeah.
or the little inconsistencies within the world that would at least like lend some credibility to the narrative that he is in fact just an offshoot of Ed Norton.
No, I think, and to add a third to these movies, so Beautiful Mind is Russell Crowe's character is this brilliant mathematician, and then he kind of like he becomes sort of this, he gets wrapped up in this government like code breaking in the Cold War and all this stuff, and you realize that like after an amount of time, like you're seeing it all from his perspective, and then they reveal that he isn't a code breaker for like the US government, that it's all just a delusion that he's been participating in for a long time, and that like characters that have been in the movie like the whole time, there's this his roommate from college is this like this main character who keeps kind of popping in and out, and eventually he has a kid and the kid's around, And then like there's this pivotal moment where this roommate, they've been out of college for like 20 years, and Russell Crowe's character realizes that like this guy's daughter has been the same age for a really long time. And it's like all this stuff where like once they reveal it, you're like, wait, yeah. And there's this like, I remember seeing a behind the scenes thing where there's a moment where she's running around in like a quad at a university, and there's all these birds and none of the birds are flying. Like they're all just like hanging out and she's running around in between them. And it doesn't occur to you the first time you see it that that's anything weird.
Right.
And then the next time you're like, wait, it's freaking birds, man. Look at what was up. And by what was up was nothing. But yeah, like I think like that's sort of a satisfying twist is when they can incorporate something into this, never like explicitly go through and be like, this is real, but just let you assume that long enough to when you realize otherwise, you're like, what? And I think in doing that kind of is designed to give good replay value to whatever it is you're watching.
But I also think that a function of twists can be to add a layer of ambiguity to the story, or at least like a level of depth that that remains intentionally unresolved. And the example that comes to mind for me, at least, is Citizen Kane with Rosebud. How we don't find out what it is until I think actually like the last frames of the movie.
Yes,
I think it just ends with Rosebud being thrown into the fire. It's a sled.
Yeah, it is a sled.
For the people in the future, sleds were how we moved around on snow.
Yeah, snow
Unless-
was this thing where when water was too cold, water was this thing that
Unless this is a Snowpiercer
Yeah.
future, in which case, like,
You know what's
you get
Yeah,
it.
just-
Yeah, like we're not
just
like,
skip ahead.
Yeah,
No, but in Citizen Kane, you have, the ultra wealthy media magnate / politician. Oh God.
Oh god.
power through.
Uttering Rosebud is like one of his final word.
Yeah,
And we have the story of the reporter who's trying to figure out what exactly that is. And through his investigation, we see and learn about Kane's life. But ultimately, we don't actually find any resolution in what that word means.
right. Like we can make assumptions, but there's no like explicit like this is what it means or why he was talking about it.
So what I'm picking up on is that the idea behind the movie is that when we figure out what Rosebud is, it'll lock everything into place and explain this character. And kind of the twist is that no, it doesn't.
Right.
Just a
Yeah.
childhood sled.
Right. Which I mean, obviously volumes have been written about like what that means, why is it the childhood sled? Like,
Right.
and there's, I mean, certainly something to be said for the idea that like, he was ripped away from his parents as a young boy to go like be raised in the city, which is, first of all, is that a thing? Was that a thing?
I don't know. I think that was like a Dust Bowl thing, maybe.
But God, what?
It's a real Dickensian like
Right.
notion.
So there's something to be said for like the idea of him like going back to his childhood, like perhaps the last happy memory he had because he was sledding before he went inside and found out, oh, you're being ripped away because we want you to be wealthy in the city.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, all we can really do as the audience is speculate.
Right. And kind of, it still does that job of recasting things where we see this guy have almost literally everything he could possibly want. And yet his last words are a reference to a time before he had next to anything.
Right.
And yeah, so I think it's cool in the way that it makes you continue to process the movie, not necessarily because of a firm recasting of anything, but just kind of a subtle shift in making more of a discussion out of every part of the movie you've seen.
Yeah. And I think another movie that does that equally successfully is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, to discuss in terms of twist endings is actually pretty difficult because it's also a very difficult movie to parse in terms of chronology.
Yeah.
The premise for those in the future, although you probably have something like this, is that Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet play former lovers who are undergoing an experimental medical procedure to have their memories of each other erased. So the film is both a walk through Jim Carrey's memories of the relationship as it is disappearing from his mind, but also we watch their relationship unfold in real time, only to learn eventually that it's the second time that it's happened.
Yes, that they've both paid to have their memories erased previously, so now they're falling back into a relationship that they have both wanted out of at some point in the past.
I think once you learn that, once it's all solidified, and once you learn things like Kirsten Dunst's character had a previous relationship with the Doctor and was starting to fall into one again, once you learn things like that, it really does drive home the ultimate, I think, like the biggest question of the movie, sort of like how prone are we to being the same people?
Right.
Like, no matter what happens.
Yeah, even when we have the ability to literally erase people from our lives, and yet we keep falling into those same traps.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think it's in some ways like a parable on that level in terms of like people falling into these patterns of behavior no matter what anyway.
Right.
It's also maybe a little weird and there's no singular like aha moment.
Yeah, it's like unfolding slowly over the course of the film that you're kind of piecing stuff together.
Right.
I guess it's less of a twist ending and more of like it only makes sense once you've gone through. So technically at the end it makes the most sense because you've seen all the pieces.
Yeah.
But it's more of a puzzle that you have to piece together throughout. Yeah, one like of my go-to twist ending examples that we haven't mentioned yet is the twist in Usual Suspects.
Yeah.
In part because it's great because it's that it gives you that element of recasting things that you've seen before, but not wholly because you find out some new piece of information. It is in large part that, but it's also the fact that you find out at the very end that your narrator has been unreliable the whole time.
Yeah,
and
great.
so like you have to question what you've been told by the movie visually, what you've been told by the guy who's telling you the story, and that's because the twist is Kevin Spacey has been spending the entire film talking about this guy Kaiser Soze who's secretly pulling the strings, meanwhile talking about Kevin Spacey's character's own life and referencing all these very specific weird asides. Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the film, the guy he's been talking to, Kevin Spacey, is free to go. And as he's walking out, the police detective who's been interviewing him in his office looks around the room and realizes that all the interesting details from Kevin Spacey's life are pulled from random crap in his office, like a bulletin board with a name on it or an address that he just like uses to invent this history, and that you find out that in fact Kevin Spacey is Kaiser Soze, the guy who's been running around doing all the crazy stuff, and that he's the super criminal who has somehow never been brought to justice because he's so mysterious.
Yeah, that sparks in me to go a lot more recent, and because I usually don't bring up books, to bring up a book, and that is Gone Girl, which has two unreliable narrators. And one the whole time is this missing woman, her diary, and telling the story of falling in love with her husband, and then her husband becoming erratic, and all these things. And now at the start of the book, she's missing.
Yeah.
And you have her husband's story and her story unfolding side by side. Then at the midway point of the book, so not an ending, but still a twist, you realize, nope, she faked her own death and disappearance and has written this entire journal over the course of like months and years, just to set him up to fall. And just like, what?
Yeah.
For those of you who are not reading inclined, the movie version of Gone Girl is also fantastic. But it's the unreliable narrator twist ending, I think, is a really good thing to pull out. I think that's really excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because it makes you question not just the details that are true, but also just what details are. It makes you rethink the entire movie in a very different way, because you almost feel manipulated more genuinely when it's a character that's supposed to be speaking to you that's all of a sudden like playing you for a fool. Because the point in Gone Girl, at least, is that she's trying to use this diary to screw over her cheating husband.
Yeah.
And is just subtle enough, but it's not, it doesn't fully connect, but then it makes you question him, because he's the other half of the story.
Right.
And so for the first half, you're like, I think he's telling us lies, he's seeing things through a weird lens, and then you're like, oh crap, she was trying to make me feel that way the whole time. It's good. Anything else in the twist?
I got nothing else in my twist bucket.
My bucket's all out of twists.
All out of
My
twists.
twists have all been untwisted.
All right, well, so let's review. We've got
Empire Strikes Back, Planet of the Apes.
Planet of the Apes.
What were our bad twists?
Our bad twists were
Battlestar Galactica.
Battlestar Galactica, and Liberty Comes at
The
a Price in Space.
Oh no!
It's in there. It's
Yeah.
in there now. We had The Usual Suspects.
Yep.
Endless Sunshine.
And
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Citizen Kane, Beautiful Mind, Fight Club,
Gone Girl.
Gone Girl.
All right. A lot of stuff this
A
time.
lot of
around.
stuff.
Yeah.
But I think we've painted a complete picture
Yeah.
of the world of twists. All right, you wanna
Let's
seal her
it
up? All right.